If you receive an FTB audit letter, here's some things you should know. There's going to be various stages to the FTB audit cycle. Let's go through them. The first is you're going to get an initial contact letter. That letter is going to be from the FTB auditor. It's going to have that person's name, their contact information. It's also going to have some other vital pieces of information, such as the tax years that are being audited and who the taxpayer is. Take a look at that. Is it going to be you as an individual, or is one of your businesses? The other things you're going to want to pay attention to are the issues that are identified on that FTB contact letter. This is not an extensive list of the issues. This is an initial list. And once FTB goes through your documents and reviews your tax returns, there might be some additional issues, and the audit could be expanded to cover those additional issues in addition to additional tax years. So once you contact, and I recommend contacting the auditor as soon as possible, even if you're not available, even if you don't want to meet with them, even if you plan on hiring a tax attorney, contact them, schedule a meeting 30 days out. That'll give you time to strategize, pull your records together, and hopefully be able to identify if there's an error and whether documents or legal support might be able to resolve the issue. You're then going to meet with the auditor. Most of the time it's going to be by phone. We've had hundreds of cases with FTB. Rarely do we meet with them in person. Well, before COVID we did. After COVID, it's all done by phone. You can do a Zoom meeting if you think it's going to be helpful and review the documents that you're going to be providing. So once you have that meeting, the FTB auditor is going to send you what they call an IDR. It's an information document request. That IDR is going to list all the documents initially that FTB has identified based on their review of your tax return and where they think the errors are. You're going to then supply those documents by the deadline listed on the IDR. And if you need more time, make sure that you negotiate for more time. Typically, the auditor is going to set a time for about a couple weeks out. More complicated records might take more time. So you can negotiate different time periods for different documents. Once you submit those documents, or if you need time right before the deadline, you can ask for an extension. Usually they're okay with that. Anyways, you're going to submit your documents, and then the FTB auditor is going to review them. I would schedule an appointment to keep the communication open with FTB. Don't let them just simply get your documents and review it, because most likely they're not going to understand you, your financial transactions, and if you have a business, they're absolutely not going to understand your business unless you provide the explanation. And we typically provide the narrative ahead of time with the records. We go through the records, we understand what the transaction is, and if we think there's something that might be misconstrued, we'll provide an explanation. But I would absolutely recommend, if you have a business, hire a tax attorney. A lot of complicated tax issues and legal requirements that you might think, well, I think I got this. But we've seen it a lot of times when they go wrong, and we get a call from the CPA or even from the taxpayer business owner and say, hey, I get an assessment, I need some help. So if there are some transactions on your tax return, you think, well, we might need some help in resolving these, call a tax attorney ahead of time, have him or her review your documents and come up with a strategy for the narrative and what documents are provided, and maybe what documents you're not going to provide, because it's possible you might have some records that are not complete and might tell a different story from what was reported on your tax return. Even if you have a clear explanation, it might make it more confusing. So there might be some explanation that is necessary. After you provide your documents, and there's going to be several exchanges going back and forth, there might be IDR 1, 2, 3, 4, hopefully not that many. You're going to then have a list of issues. The FTB auditor is going to say, look, you know what, we disagree with this position on your return, and they're going to issue what they call an audit issue list. And these are all the things that they're disagreeing with preliminarily. This is your opportunity to go back and say, okay, why are we at a disagreement? Where is the gap that needs to be bridged? Is it a legal issue? Is it a factual issue? Is it a lack of documents? This is your opportunity to shore it up. Potentially, we have lots of cases where the FTB, there's a law in California that might require certain things, but at times there could be exceptions, or at times they might misinterpret, or not misinterpret, reinterpret, actually, I would say, the words. Maybe the auditor misinterpreted, or we might have a different definition of what that might mean. And no two people will disagree, by the way, on everything that's stated in law. That's why we have case law. Judges can disagree, attorneys can disagree, and certainly the FTB will disagree. So take a position, have your factual, your facts in check, and documents to support those facts, as well as the legal support, because that's really going to help at the end of the day to identify what the problem is and to convince the auditor that your return is correct based on the transactions and based upon your interpretation of the law. After that point, if the auditor still disagrees, they're going to issue you what they call a notice of proposed assessment. Now, this is where you have to make a determination. What are you going to do? You know, by this point, hopefully, either you or your tax attorney or CPA have assessed the issue and said, okay, we either think we're wrong or we think we're right, or maybe we need to get another expert who can clarify what is the potential for winning on this issue. And so once you've done that, you're going to have 30 days from the NPA date, and it's listed. I would actually go off of the date listed on the Notice of Proposed Assessment, and that's your date to have to mail in the protest letter. And once you mail your protest letter in, then you're going to be assigned a hearing officer who's then going to be reviewing your position and make sure that your letter, it could be, by the way, more than 30 days, but make sure whatever letter you provided by the deadline that's stated on the NPA, make sure it addresses the issues. You're not just talking about, well, we didn't have complete records and because of COVID and we had a flood. They're not really as concerned about that. That maybe goes to the penalties and what they call reasonable cause. What they're really looking for is that did you satisfy the law? They can't turn a blind eye if you clearly do not satisfy the requirements for the deduction, for the transaction, or how you characterize that transaction on your return. Hopefully this information is useful. I'm John Milikowsky, founder of Milikowsky Tax Law.